Hello, thank you for joining us for the BPM Change Management PRR Review monthly meeting. My name is Isabella Nicosia from ISO Stakeholder Affairs, and I'll be facilitating today's web conference. In an effort to increase transparency and provide greater service to stakeholders, the ISO records the BPM Change Management meetings. The recordings are for informational and convenience purposes only, allowing stakeholders to listen to meetings that they may have missed. The recordings will be publicly available on the BPM Change Management webpage for 30 days. The purpose of today's meeting is to discuss the proposed revision requests, or PRRs, that are in the initial or recommendation stage of the process. We will be discussing 27 PRRs today. 22 are in the initial stage and 5 are in the recommendation stage. All have been ISO submitted. We will be taking questions throughout the call today, and you can enter the question queue at any time by pressing #2 on your telephone keypad. We'd just like to remind everyone to please start by introducing yourself before asking your question. So a little bit of background about the BPM change management process. It's part of the California ISO Stakeholder Initiative process, and the purpose of BPMs is to set forth business practices that implement the ISO tariff. The ISO conducts a yearly policy initiative roadmap process to consider and rank initiatives, and policy changes submitted through the PRR process will be referred to the policy initiative roadmap process. Each subject area in a BPM is based on enabling language in the ISO tariff, and the PRR process cannot be used to introduce changes that are not supported by existing tariff authority. So today we'll start off with the Reliability Coordinator Services BPM. We have one PRR, it's 1196, and it's in the initial stage. And Abdul Muhammad Ali will take us through this one.
This PRR is minor updates to our RC processes, mainly eliminating the initial onboarding language because it's no longer relative. Up to this moment, we have not received any comments, and the comment period expires today. And the next step is to post recommendations.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions on this PRR?
There are no questions over the phone at this time.
Okay, thanks. All right, moving forward into Market Operations BPM. We have 5 PRRs. One is in the recommendation stage, that's PRR 1171, and the rest are in the initial stage, that's 1176, 1180, 1191, and 1194. Let me see, is Jamal Bataji on the phone to go through these?
Jamal is not on the line at this time.
Okay, so I'll run through these. If you do have any questions regarding these PRRs, please just submit your questions to the BPM Change Management mailbox, and I'll forward those to the BPM coordinator so that your questions can get addressed. So for PRR 1171, this is the load conformance limiter logic in the 15-minute market. The reason for revision was an added footnote to clarify the load conformance limiter logic in the 15-minute market. No comments were submitted, and the comment period expired on September 18th, and the next step is to post the final decision. For PRR 1176, this is the Energy Storage and Distributed Energy Resources 3A bid option and expected energy calculation charges. The reason for this revision is changes to the bid dispatchable option and expected energy calculation due to the new hourly and 15-minute block dispatchable PDRs from ESDR 3A project. There were no comments submitted on this PRR, and the comment period expired on September 4th. The next step is to post the recommendation. For PRR 1180, this is participating generator definition. The reason for this revision was paragraph 2.1.3 due to the changes to enable storage resources with a capacity rating of 100 kW to participate in the CAISO markets. This is related to FERC 841, and it has an effective date of fall 2019. Again, no comments were submitted on this. The comment period expired on September 18th, and the next step is to post the recommendation. So for PRR 1191, this is the local power market mitigation enhancements, mitigation changes. The reason for this revision was to support the local market power mitigation enhancements project. These changes include mitigation process enhancements due to flow reversal and economic displacement, and it has an effective date of November 2019. Again, no comments were submitted on this PRR. The comment period expired yesterday, September 23rd, and the next step is to post the recommendation. And then PRR 1194, this is changes to reliability must-run and capacity procurement mechanism enhancement project. The reason for this revision was to make enhancements to the RMR and CPM procurement mechanisms to modernize the RMR agreement, combine all retirement-related backstop procurement under RMR, and to clarify when the ISO would use its RMR versus CPM backstop procurement authority. And the expected date of this release is fall 2019. There were no comments submitted. The comment period expired again yesterday, September 23rd, and the next step is to post the recommendation. So moving forward into the Energy Imbalance Market BPM, we have two PRRs, 1172, which is in the recommendation stage, and 1192, which is in the initial stage. Just want to check again if Jamal is on the line.
Yeah. Sorry, Isabella, I'm online.
Okay. You want to, and Jamal will run us through these.
Yeah. These two next PRRs are related to the IM BPM. So the 1172, we added a new section in IM BPM, section number 11314, and this is to detail the market logic for the IM threshold. Comment period expired on September the 18th. That is to post the final decision. 1192, this is actually related to PRR 1191, related to the LMP initiative, but this PRR is for the changes in the EIM. No comments submitted, and the initial comment period expired on September 23rd. And the next set of the PRRs are related to the market instrument BPM. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. I'll start with the 1173. This is the change. We added new report transmission loss to display the IM and the CISO transmission loss clearing results. No comments submitted, and the recommendation comment period expired on September the 18th. That is post the final decision.
Okay.
I'll leave 1181 till the last here. I'll do next 1190. This PRR also same as PRR 1191 changes. No comments were submitted. Actually, there was a comment on this from PowerX that was submitted, I believe, yesterday. We will be working on this, on the reply, on the response, and then will be posted hopefully this week or as soon as possible. Initial comment period expired on September 23rd, and the next step is to post recommendation. 1193 is same as 1194. This is for the RMR and CPM initiative, but then again, changes. No comments submitted on this particular one, and the initial comment period expired on September 23rd. The recommendation.
Thanks,
Back
Jamal.
to this PRR 1181. We've received a few comments, questions from several entities. And this is initially, we're adding a clarity to the process to support the tariff section 464 on this change. Like I said, we received several comments, and then we can go. David Zlotlon in the room?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so.
Yeah, hi. Good morning. So I guess I can take it from here in terms of the comments on PR 1181. So as Jamal said, we got several sets of comments on this. What I'd like to do is sort of, in reviewing the comments, I think we saw kind of six sort of general topic areas covered. So I'll mention what those are, and then we'll go sort of topic by topic and discuss all of the comments that we thought sort of fell into that topic. So as we read it, it looked like there was comments surrounding, number one, the ISO's authority to pursue the changes in this PRR. Second was sort of relatedly questioning the need for this PRR. Third area was really focusing on the design capabilities concept and sort of why we were framing it using those terms instead of other terms. Fourth big area was sort of concerns or questions about the documentation that would be required through this PRR to make a master file change. Number five was sort of on the just general process questions about how the process is going to work and so on. And then the final area to discuss is requests for exemptions from the general rules that are being laid out. So assuming that the rules are sort of carried through as proposed, questions about whether there's certain areas that could be offered an exemption. Okay, so going back to topic number one, sort of the general authority for the ISO to pursue the changes. As I was reading it, we saw comments really hitting at this from WPTF and Middle River Power. So I will sort of cover what we see as the comments in that area. First, both WPTF and Middle River were raising sort of a concern that the ISO's proposed process presumes the ISO has greater technical expertise than the generator or scheduling coordinator. On that point, or that concern, we don't agree with the suggesting that we're looking to substitute our operational judgment for that of the plant operators or the scheduling coordinator. Really, the point of this change is a due diligence issue. The ISO needs to feel confident that a changed value master file meets the tariff requirement, and so what we're asking is that the resource or the scheduling coordinator for the resource provide the basis of its technical judgment. So we're not really looking to create our own judgment or our own estimation of the resource's capabilities. We're asking, when you submit a change, it needs to be grounded upon a reasonable basis, and we're asking for documentation to explain what your basis is. So we want parties to justify their technical judgments, but we're not looking to come up with our own judgments. We just need to have some, basis of understanding why are you asking for this change. So another area in this sort of general topic area, WPTF suggested that the proposed change conflicts with the existing tariff language because the generator and not the ISO hold the responsibility for providing accurate information. In response to that point, we don't see any reasonable reading of Section 4.6.4 of the tariff that would prohibit us to implement this process. I think, we'll talk about this later on as well as other related comments about whether it's the scheduling coordinator versus the generator owner who provides the information. But basically, in our read of Section 4.6.4, we don't see any conflict between that tariff section and the PRR that we proposed. And then finally, in this first bucket of topics, the WPTF suggests that the PRR is giving the ISO authority to reject a value that the resource owner views as accurate information. So the general principle is the scheduling coordinator on behalf of the generator owner is responsible for providing accurate information. I think the comment goes to if the resource owner is saying this is accurate, the ISO should have authority to reject the value that the resource owner says is viewing as accurate. And so again, related to the point we made before, I think this PRR highlights the ISO's idea that the resource owner needs to substantiate its view of the accuracy of the information with some kind of supporting documentation. But we're really only looking to reject requested changes when there's no supporting information provided, or whatever supporting information provided is just clearly at odds with the requested change. Or, alternatively, if there's some other avenue of effectuating the request, such as some changes are temporary changes in resource performance should be reflected in outage card, not a master file change. So there might be some areas where there's just a more appropriate way of representing the issue. But, outside of that, we're not looking to sort of supersede the technical judgment of the resource owner. Of course, they're the most knowledgeable about how the resource is going to perform, but we are asking for some substantiation of that. So I'll pause there, realizing that when I said there's these 6 categories, there's a lot of overlap in the comment. We're just sort of trying to put some sort of framework around responding to this, but I'll pause there and see if there's any responses at this point from what we've said so far.
So Roy, could you just let us know if anyone enters the question queue?
Of course. Once again, at this time, there are no questions in the queue. I do take that back. We did just get one caller enter the question queue.
Okay.
Caller, go ahead. Your line is unmuted.
Hi, this is Camille Kristen from Idaho Power Company. I appreciate the explanation that you're providing here. I just wondered, are you going to provide a formal written response through the BPM process as well in case we want more details or want a chance to think about this further?
Yes. So what we're planning to do is posting a response matrix, so sort of breaking down all of these comments and who made them, and then providing an ISO response. We just weren't ready to post that out for stakeholders yet, but our plan is to do that because there is quite a few comments, and it sort of gets into some. So yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll move on to sort of the second big topic area, which is some parties were asking questions or comments that sort of got at questioning why we needed this PRR in the first place. I saw questions in that sort of area from Portland General Electric and Idaho Power. So both Portland General and Idaho sort of raised a comment questioning whether this is necessary because in their view entities already have an incentive to ensure resources are modeled correctly. And in response to that point, yes, that is true in some cases, but that is not true for all generators, and so we need to sort of put general rules that would apply in all cases, and it would be kind of difficult to sort of have different rules for different scheduling coordinators depending on how incentives align up as to that overall entity. And the other point is that the incentives may not be strong enough or completely aligned with our overall goal to sort of say, yeah, whatever incentives there are strong enough to ensure that the information meets our needs for accuracy. And final point, which I really could have raised before, is sort of that what sits on top of all of this is some of you may not know that the ISO had a FERC audit that took about a year, and the final audit report is in docket PA 17-3, so that's a public document, and one of the audit findings was, in the area of market data that's provided to the ISO by participants, and there were audit findings on that, and specifically on the question of whether, existing market incentives are enough to ensure accuracy. The audit report suggested that that approach is not sufficient in terms of helping ensure the data provided is accurate. So, we understand the comment from Portland and Idaho, but, we think that, relying on incentives, from the market is not good enough in terms of ensuring the accuracy. Another comment made by Idaho Power was raising the point that tariff section 4.6.4 already imposes a requirement to submit accurate information on generator as represented by the scheduling coordinator, so then why is this additional process necessary? Giving a little more detail here, the purpose of the process we're putting in place is to have a mechanism to prevent the potentially non-compliant values from getting fed through the market process beforehand, rather than waiting until the market consumes the data and then trying to address the issue afterwards. And again, as a general matter, the audit report did highlight the need for the ISO to address what the FERC auditors viewed as weaknesses in CAISO's data validation procedures, and that's a quote from the report, that there were weaknesses in CAISO's data validation procedures. So that is, in a nutshell, overall why we're pursuing this, and specifically on the question of whether it's enough to rely on Section 4.6.4 obligation on the SC, as distinct from the ISO needing to put some framework around that, it's not sufficient as we view it. Finally, Idaho Power mentioned that this document that was posted had a reference at the top saying this is just corporate goal 4A. So that was an internal notation that was not meant to be included. So we apologize for the confusion, but that's, this isn't driven by a corporate goal. This is sort of in relation to bigger concerns. So that should have been deleted. That was not meant to be included. So on that topic area of questioning the need for the PRR, if there's any questions there, you can take those now.
Okay, we do have another question over the phone. Caller, go ahead. Your line is unmuted.
Hi, good afternoon, David. Sorry, good morning, David. Aditya here from SCE. I was wondering, could you provide us a bit more information on who conducted the audit and what was the need for the audit, the nature of it? Any more details?
Well, I can, yeah. So it was the Division of Audits at First Office of Enforcement. So I can give the docket number again. I don't, the docket number is PA17-3. That part of the Office of Enforcement does, audits of all sorts of entities that are under FERC's jurisdiction. It happened to be California ISO's turn, and so that report, you can look up the docket. It's a public document. I don't know that I want to characterize it any more than sort of what's on the four corners of the documents that are posted publicly. So I was like there reading a quote from it. But yeah, so it was a part of FERC's Office of Enforcement.
I see, thank you. So specifically, the Office of Enforcement suggested that you should do the information gathering procedure differently. Or was that correct, what I gathered from what you said?
Well, it was highlighting that that whatever procedures we had to validate data were not strong enough, and so what you see laid out in the PRR is one of our responses to that, and trying to tighten up and sort of have better assurances that what is being provided to master file is meeting the requirements of Section 4.6.4.
Thank you. So how you validate the data, not how the reporting is actually done, is what is of concern, right?
I'm not sure I understood the distinction you were trying to draw there. Could you repeat that?
So there's one point is how the reporting is performed, who you get to report the data to you, but you're saying that how you validate the data is basically what the CISO does to determine that the accuracy of the data, right? Those are two separate topics.
Oh, okay, yeah. So I believe, right, it was at SCE. I think you separately had a comment that I was going to get to in a moment. The question of is it the SC versus the generator owner, that topic versus whoever gives us the data, how do we know the data is accurate? Is that kind of the distinction you're trying to draw out right now?
Yeah, it's related.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, I think the PRR, yes, is focused on the, ensuring the data meets the tariff requirements, but I think the question of who is providing it has been an existing approach, and that we weren't looking to change, and I think consistent with what we've always done, it's the data is provided by the scheduling coordinator as the agent of the generator owner.
Thank you. So going back to my original question, there is a distinction between how you determine the accuracy of the data versus who ends up reporting it, right? And the former is what the Office of Enforcement was talking about as opposed to the latter.
Yes, I think so. I think, yes, that the fundamental issue is master file, is the market running based on information that's accurate? That was the fundamental question. The fundamental question was not focused on whether, the generator owner directly submitting the information to the ISO versus the scheduling coordinator directly submitting the information to the ISO. But as I said, our existing practice has always been this scheduling coordinator submitting it directly to the ISO, and we weren't looking to change that. And we didn't see that as really being an issue that was raised through the overall process.
Great, thank you. I don't have any further questions.
Are there any other questions in queue?
There are no further questions in the queue at this time.
Okay. Well, the third big topic area was sort of focusing on the concept of design capabilities and the terminology of design capabilities that we put in the BPM. I'll sort of kind of summarize at a high level our response, and I can get into specific comments. But, really a lot of parties were commenting on this idea that resources design capabilities are one thing, but what it is able to perform at a point in time is not necessarily the same, and they're sort of questioning why are we framing it that way, and sort of how are you going to account for the fact that over time a resource is no longer able to perform as it was originally designed. And, on that sort of general topic area, we have to go back to the tariff language, and when we recently amended it, within the last year or so, Section 4.6.4 specifically says that the tariff requires that the parameters accurately reflect a resource's design capabilities, and then this is a quote, recognizing that resource performance may degrade over time. So the tariff itself is acknowledging that there's going to be a potential degradation in performance over time, and that will be a legitimate basis for a resource owner or through its scheduling coordinator. That's a legitimate basis to update a master file value, that it was designed to do it one way. The resource is now 30 years old, and so now it's, not able to hit the initial, nameplate amount, and therefore, for example, its PMAX should be lowered. Things like that, yes, that's fully contemplated under the tariff language, and then, so of course, also fully contemplated under the PRR. I think the PRR is written, it had a long quote from the tariff section as well. I think if it helps, one small clarification, I think we say design capability, we use that term throughout the PRR, but, sort of wrapped into that is design capability as may have degraded over time based on, resource age. So when we keep saying design capability throughout the PRR, it sort of implies that it's design capability, it's age-adjusted design capability for sort of one way of putting it. So, we can look at sort of adding clarity there, that when we say resource performance, we can add a term like, age-adjusted capability or something like that, just to make clear that we're continuing to refer back to the tariff provision that says the degradation over time is fully expected, and that's a fine basis for putting in a change. So I'll go through the specific comments really quickly, but they all kind of revolve around that concept. Calpine raised the point that resources design capabilities generally do not change, and again, we agree, but that over time the age will degrade performance, but overall, that's right. The design capabilities generally do not change, and that's why we wouldn't expect to see a ton of master file changes on the basic, resource parameters. SCE and Calpine and Idaho Power all raised similar arguments, pointing out that in some form or another, some RDT information needs to be updated as the scheduling coordinator gains experience with how the ISO market model uses the information provided to master file. So going back to what the tariff requires, it's supposed to represent the design capability. So tweaking master file data based on how the market has dispatched the resource in general, that's really not in line with the tariff requirement. The tariff makes it clear that the master file parameters are supposed to represent design capabilities. So updating a value in light of how the market has used that information, we don't see that as an appropriate reporting to master file. And then Middle River Power suggested that the design capability terminology is misleading or confusing. again, point back to the tariff that says that we recognize resource performance may degrade over time, and that we can look to add some further clarity just to make clear that any time in the PRR we say design capabilities, it's acknowledging that age can affect performance. And then I think Calpine raised similar concerns, and we have the same response. So those were sort of our responses to the general questions about the design capabilities language. So pause there and see if there's any questions.
Once again, if you do have a question, please press #2 on your telephone keypad. And we have no questions at this time.
Okay, so moving on to the fourth large topic area, questions around the documentation that we're asking to be provided to accompany the master file change. I think all these were submitted by Calpine. First point they raised is that air permit restrictions or other types of permit restrictions are things that can limit operational characteristics in ways that may not be readily included in opportunity costs. So that's kind of linking back to the Commitment Cost Enhancement Phase 3 initiative, which went live earlier this year, which allows for, it changes the definition of a use-limited resource, allows opportunity cost modeling. And I think what they're getting at is some limitations on the resource performance can't be reflected in opportunity costs. And I think they're sort of implied in that is the idea, well, the only other way to reflect that would be in master file, but now we're saying that it's not allowed through master file. And so our response there is that, yes, it's true that not all permit limitations would necessarily be accounted for through the opportunity cost modeling, but those limitations can be accounted for through other mechanisms such as outage cards. There's specific natures of work relating to environmental limitations. So if a resource is unable to perform because it has a binding environmental permit, that should be reflected through those outage cards, but it wouldn't be reflected in the master file, which is, again, related to the design capabilities of the unit and not permit restrictions. Calpine also mentioned the point that some generators are quite old and have idiosyncratic operation, and the initial guidance is irrelevant or outdated. And so they're saying, hey, we could provide you the initial operating manual, but that's not really going to provide a lot of guidance in terms of justifying a change. Point out, importantly, the PRR does not limit the documentation to operating manuals. It uses the phrase appropriate supporting materials, and then it provides examples as being test results, manufacturer recommendations, historical data, contracts, resource operating procedures, engineering studies, etc. So we say etc. That's clearly to suggest that those are just examples of things to be provided, but in a particular case, those might not really be good supporting documentation, and we'll have to just see based on the specific generator's situation what is the appropriate supporting material. But again, those were just offered as examples, and so that's our response there. Relatedly, Calpine also says some things may not be specifically identified in the operating manual, and so they're not going to be able to reference specific pages or section numbers in the manual. Again, we understand that may happen, but the operating manual is just one category of supporting documentation. There's other things that could be provided depending on the circumstances. And then we'd have the same response to Calpine pointing out that sometimes the initial manuals from the operator are considered intellectual property of the plant manufacturer, the generating unit manufacturer, so they have to get consent, or might require all sorts of NDAs. And again, the manual is not the only source of supporting documentation. So I'll pause there. Those were the sort of topics, the sort of questions raised as to documentation requirements.
Are there any questions in queue?
And we do have one question in the queue. Caller, go ahead. Your line is unmuted.
Hi, this is Aaron Road-Horst with Portland General Electric. That's been one of my concerns is related to if the technical judgment or technical justification has a basis with a third-party document that requires confidential or NDA treatment. There's kind of two open questions of how CAISO treats that information, and two, the just time needed to clear all those hurdles, just apply the documentation. So you could have an example of a plant operator emailing me asking for changes, and the ultimate basis is a third-party study that informed the plant operator. My email can serve as my justification because I know that quickly. Working on an NDA to provide the third-party analysis takes much more time.
So in this case, it would be, the scenario is the plant operator retained some outside consultant that provided the report. The concern is the consultant wouldn't, without NDAs in place, wouldn't allow the generator owner to share the report with you as the scheduling coordinator, and then in turn the scheduling coordinator would not be permitted to provide that in turn to the ISO.
Or I may be able to see it, but I may have to go to extra lengths to make sure that the ISO can see it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that could happen, and I think, one issue is, of course, that we have general obligations to maintain the confidentiality of information provided to us by scheduling coordinators. So with a little bit of explanation, hopefully that would, in some cases be enough to provide some comfort to the generator owner or to the consultant or whoever that, there's a pre-existing obligation under our tariff to maintain confidentiality. And so in some cases, if that's not good enough, I think we might have, maybe we would have to sort of pursue some kind of NDA that would probably slow down the process a little bit. But again, going back to sort of our approach here, the values are supposed to represent kind of the inherent capabilities of the unit. And so we're not, if that's the case, we wouldn't expect a lot of changes to individual resources' registered value. And so if it's something that's not going to happen too often, then, requiring, going through the steps of having an NDA, that's a little bit of a hold-up, sure, but, given that this isn't expected to be happening all that often, we're hoping that that's not too big of a hurdle and that it's, a sort of step that's justified given that, we're viewing it as pretty important to now have some structure around the master file changes. So, I don't know if that's a super satisfying answer, but I think basically we understand that in some cases it may be necessary. And I know you had another question, I believe, as well. I forgot it. Sorry.
It's just then the general treatment of that information is confidential. It wasn't entirely clear to me that these types of materials are covered under the tariff as general, how CAISO treats them, if we need to have more specific treatment.
Yeah, if it would help in the PR, we can sort of add a reference that, there's general, our Section 20 of our tariff has general rules on confidentiality, and then, yes, whatever the supporting documentation is provided will be, covered under that.
Thank you.
Okay, we have no further questions at this time.
So I think the next area was sort of questions about the burdensomeness of the burden of the process, and we kind of started covering those issues. So, and really the idea that the process is, people are commenting this process looks kind of burdensome, and going to that point, as I just said, there may be some burden from this, we acknowledge that, but we're not expecting that there's going to be changes made too frequently, and so we think in light of the importance of getting this right that, the burden is justified. So finally, the final topic area, there were some requests for exemptions. I think Idaho Power mentioned the request that EIM participants be excluded from this. Think that if an EIM resource is being optimized in the real-time market using the values provided in master file, it's, really that's no different than an internal generator, and so, we don't see that we could exempt EIM participants from this. And then I think SCE, PG, and PG&E had a few other questions about exemptions. PG&E specifically raising the point that proxy demand response resources are a little different than other types of resources, and that maybe there's some exemptions from them given the frequency that they have to update things. We can take a look at that and sort of see if it makes sense. Similarly, PG&E was requesting that can some changes be made through the comments field in the upload screen versus through a city ticket. We can look at that, but generally we think probably it makes more sense to have everything routed per city for just sort of consistency and have everything housed in one place. And then finally, SCE was pointing out that some master file entries are not design features, and so should those be exempt? And I think generally the idea in the PR 1181, those are supposed to be quantitative master file parameters. So if there's other changes, I think, yeah, they would be handled separately. But, when we said if the values truly represent the design capabilities, it shouldn't be changed too often, that goes even more so for the other non-quantitative values. So things like fuel type, well, that should be even more rare to be changed. But, they were raising a specific example. And so in some of those one-off instances, yeah, it wouldn't really make sense to require the supporting documentation. We'll, I think, look to offer some clarity that this is meant for the quantitative field. So with that, there's a lot of comments, tried to get through them quickly, so hopefully that addresses the comments we received. If there's any final questions, otherwise we can get to the other PRRs.
Are any questions in queue?
There are no questions at this time.
Okay. Now moving on to the demand response BPM, we have one PRR, it's 1174, it's in the recommendation stage, and Pia Sok is on the line, and she'll take us through this one.
Okay, thank you. So PR 1174, the reason for this revision is this is actually a new BPM for demand response. So the ISO moved some of the information from BPM for metering and the process involving the demand response from the DR user guide and adding that into this new BPM. So in addition to these information, there's also business process that was part of ESER 3A as well. If you'd like to know if we have more information in regards to which sections are being moved, it is available on the BPM change management site. So we did receive some comments from PG&E and Olivine, and the responses have been posted yesterday. The recommendation comments expired on the 18th, and the next step is to post a final decision.
We'll pause for questions. I think one just came in the queue.
Yeah, we do have one question in the queue. Caller, go ahead. Your line is unmuted.
Hi, this is Callie Wells for WPTF, and actually I tried to chime in at the end of the last PRR, but missed it apparently. David, are you still in the room by chance?
Yeah, I was going to run out, but I figured late question.
Gotcha. So quick question. It's more of a process question. You had noted that you will be posting a response matrix, but I know this was initially filed as an emergency PRR. So I'm just curious on the timeline. Are we going to have a chance to respond to the matrix you post and then have those comments incorporated at some point? Or are you just posting those responses for information and plan on just kind of moving forward?
Kelly, this is Mike Turner. I'm here as well. We will post that matrix, and I think there are a couple things in the comments we've received so far that we will make some slight tweaks to the language to add the reference to confidentiality and maybe some clarity on any possible exemptions to the process. I welcome the comments there. I think we'll move to the next phase, but there would be an opportunity to provide comments again if they weren't addressed in the initial round here.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. For the metering BPM, we have one PRR 1175. It's in the recommendation stage, and Michael Ucol is here to take us through this one.
All right. So basically, the reason for this PRR is to clarify the audit periods for the SC self-audit. And then along with this one, we moved the metering BPM language in regards to the demand response to the previous PRR for that new BPM. At this time, there are no comments submitted. The comment period expired on September 18th, and the next step is to post a final decision.
Are there any questions on this PRR?
There are no questions at this time.
Settlements and billing BPM, we have 8 PRRs. All are in the initial stage, so it's 1177, 1178, 1179, 1182, 1183, 1184, 1185, and 1197. And Brenda Corona is here to take us through these.
Thank you, Isabella. For the first PR, we have a BPM configuration guide change to the HVAC meter load. This is to accommodate the FERC Order 841 due to settlements needing to remove the transmission active charge TAC for pump storage units starting December 3rd of this year. This will be effective dated for the December 1st of this year, and we have not received any comments, and it expired on September 4th. The next PR is for the pre-calculation MSS deviation penalty quantity, and it's due to the expected imbalanced energy as a meter subsystem agreement definition to accommodate the MEOF 2019 to 2026 MSSA gaps. The following BPM is for the version 5.51 is from the January 1st, 2018 to October 31st of this year. The version 5.6, which will include the MEOF, is from November 1st and so forth. Currently, there has been no initial comments submitted, and the next step is post-recommendation. The next PR is for the charge codes 8830 monthly resource adequacy, availability, and sector mechanism settlement, as well as the 8831 for the update for one of the HPQC submitted for the reconfiguration of the PTV calculation. And this is in order to make it more visible for the SCs, as well put the input for the CAISO level charge type for the BA level charge. This is also effective dated for the May 1st of 2019, and so forth. There hasn't been any comments, and it will have next step is post recommendation. The following PR is for the real-time energy quantity for EIM enhancements 2019, and this is for the ABC reg up, reg down of instructed regulation energy. This is effective dated November 13 of this year. There has been no comments received to date, and the next will be the post recommendation. We have now the PR 1183 for ESDR 3A, and these 3 ICGs, or the configuration guides, are for charge code 6806, Dayhead RUC, Tier 1 Association, as well as version 5.11, and the pre-calc real-time energy 5.2, pre-calc real-time net energy net amount 5.33, and lastly, the pre-calc non-spin and no-pay 5.21. And the following changes are shown on this slide, and they're all going to be effective dated November 13th. Currently, there has been no comments submitted, and the next step is post-recommendation. 2 more to go. PR 1184 is for the update of the settlement charge codes for reliability must run, RMR, and the capacity procurement mechanism enhancement initiative. The following changes have many configuration guides for our PR. Please feel free to visit the PR to see all the configuration guides for that, BPM for those. And this will be effective dated January 1st, 2020. Currently, there has been no comments submitted to this date, and the next steps are for post-recommendation. And lastly, we have the update for the 1185 settlement charge codes for real-time market neutrality settlement initiative. And this is due to the eliminating the EIM transfer adjustment from the RT imbalance energy offset, and also to add any GHG financial credit for the portion of the EIM transfers that do not correspond for GHG compliance obligation. And please feel free to visit this PRR. There are a few BPMs that are being changed for the formulas, and this will be effective dated as of August 1st, 2019. We did receive one comment from Arizona Public Service, and we did provide a response on that Friday. And our next steps are to post recommendation.
Are there any questions in the queue for this PRR?
We do have one question in the queue. Caller, go ahead. Your line is unmuted.
Hi, this is Judy Tai calling from EPS. I was wondering, I saw the reply CAISO provided to us, but we do need further clarifications, and I wonder if there's any settlement SME on the line that will be able to help us to do clarifications at this time.
Hi, this is Luis Cantos from Settlements. Could you please remind me, I'm assuming this is for RT neutrality, correct?
Correct.
Do you mind elaborating on your question? I can't recall what the initial comment was.
Right. The initial comments, I think we have one has been resolved, and I see the update being incorporated into the BPM for the average greenhouse gas components of the LMP, and that has been changed to single greenhouse gas, and so we appreciated that. But we do have another questions regarding submitting the 5 minutes tag value and to CAISO for the EIM BAAs, and then we're confused because we know that CAISO's selecting the option 3 from the proposals, pretty much supposed to shape those tags for us, and then now we are confused with if we turning the hourly, because after the fact tag is on the hourly value, who is going to shape that for the EIM BAAs to the 5 minute level?
Right. So currently right now, we're only going to be, with this enhancement, we're only going to be shaping dynamic and static EPSR transfers between CAISO and the EIM entity. Anything that's between EIM to EIM is already being submitted at a 5 minute granularity, so there's no need to shape those. The problem is with the CAISO, EIM to CAISO transfers. We're actually getting them on an hourly value, and we're aggregating them by basically dividing them by 12 in current production. So going forward, instead of doing that, we're actually going to shape them to the RTD schedules.
Right, I understand that. However, when we submit our 5 minutes level, it's really not the after-the-fact tag, it's the market award. So if now the BPM is specified that you guys want after the fact tag value, that is in the hourly value. So is it going to be a megawatt hour? So every 5 minutes we have to further shape from there? Because when we're turning our 5 minutes level value, it's the market award, it's not after the fact tag. Most of the time it's the same, but it could be discrepancies.
Right, understood. So when you're talking about the tags, after the fact tags between your area and the ISO, when that's being submitted, that's checked out through.
I'm talking about all the values that we submit as a EPSR, either between us and the other EIMBA and or between us and CAISO. We always turning the 5 minutes value, but that's a market award value. But now you guys propose the changes, which is great, and we want to comply with it, and then you say it's after the fact tag value. With the WEC, it's an hourly value. We never really shape it. And then, so now it creates some confusion. And then we can't turn in something in the tag value for CAISO and then the 5 minutes award for us between other EIM BAAs, and that creates some process inconsistencies.
I understand. So based upon, to the best of my knowledge, from what I know is that ETSR transfers between EIM entities and another EIM entities are already submitted at a 5-minute granularity, and I know that's not what you're claiming, and I understand. Although I'm not.
No, I'm saying it is in the 5 minutes granularity, but it's in the market award number value. It's not after the fact tag value. And then if you want us to turn in the after the fact tag value, after the fact tag is always in the hourly value. Then there's further work needs to be done to shape in that value to a 5 minutes to reflect the market award.
Are you saying
after
that
the fact tag
don't submit?
After the fact tag is always an hourly value. When we submit, currently we submit all the 5 minutes. It's the market award value. It's a market dispatch. It's not. We never really turn in the true after the fact tag in the 5 minutes level. So when you look at the 5 minutes level, it's the market award level.
Okay. I'd have to get back to you on your question, and I'll get clarification on that, because based on my understanding, the tags are being submitted on a 5-minute value, and I'll get back to you on your question.
Yeah, because that's not, again, that's not a tag value. The value we submit at the 5 minutes value is the market award value. So I want to clarify that, you know, this is going to be a huge process and then system changes. Just like that 10% maybe have some discrepancies, but we need to have a consistent process. Which way should we approach this? And then if we continue turning the 5 minutes value like we did today, that 5 minutes value is not after the fact tag.
And those are the values that are being submitted through RTIS?
Correct.
On RTIS?
Correct.
Okay. All right, I'll confirm that and send you a reply through an email.
Okay, so we need to get this clarifications, and then you will send me the email to resolve this. Is that correct?
Yes, I'll get back to you as soon as possible.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Now, PRR 1197. It's another settlements and billing.
Yes. This one is the emergency PRR that was for the peak RC settlement, and it's this update to the peak RC charge code, and it's to just make sure that we have consistency with the RC customers internal, the KISO BAs. And no comments have been submitted, and the initial comment period did expire already, but the next step is post-recommendation.
Now for the generator interconnection and deliverability allocation procedures BPM, we have one PRR. It's PRR 1186, and it's in the initial stage, and Linda Wright is here to take us through this one.
Hi. This revision is due to the 2019 Interconnection Process Enhancement Initiative for changes for deliverability status, study agreements, shared SAN use, and interconnection request criteria. We did receive comments, joint comments from EDF Renewables and Large Scale Solar Association, prior they're submitted on the 18th, and from San Diego Gas and Electric, also submitted on the 18th. That being that the initial comment period expired. The next step is to post recommendation. We have not posted a response to these comments that were received at the end of the comment period yet, but we have experts in the room to answer any questions people might have on the line.
Okay, and it looks like there's one question in the queue, so we'll go ahead and take that now.
Okay. Caller, go ahead. Your line is unmuted.
Hi, this is Susan Schneider, Phoenix Consulting. I submitted the joint comments on behalf of these the organizations listed. First of all, I just want to say before I even get into that we really do appreciate the fact that you've started to post the due date for the PRR comments in the daily bulletin. That's very, very helpful, and I wanted to express some appreciation for that. So thank you very much for doing that. And then back to this particular PRR. I think that the thing that we were mostly concerned about is that the whole standalone network upgrade section seem to be, has gotten through several Band-Aids and changes that have been made. There's a huge amount of duplication. Some things were said the same topics were addressed in two different language in two different ways, and so part of our comments and the main organizational ones were just to try and make that a little more rational. It was just very hard to follow and understand. It was actually, the language seemed very punitive, and so we're hoping that you'll consider the reorganization in there. It wasn't intended to substantively change much in there. The only question we had on substance was the fact that there is a requirement that is not in the tariff that has to do with a contract between entities that would share a standalone network upgrade. And I think that requirement in and of itself is not objectionable, because it's hard to see that people would do that without having some kind of agreement. But if the ISO is or the PTOs have to approve that agreement, then there needs to be some kind of criteria or something in there about that. It's okay to submit the agreement to the ISO and to the PTOs, but the agreement has to be, it's been negotiated between the parties. They've all presumably agreed, and if the ISO or the PTO is going to somehow reject it, then we need to understand the criteria for that. Also, the agreement needs to be changed in a reasonable way if one of the parties drops out. So anyway, that was the nature of the comments that we submitted on this. So please contact me if you have any questions or concerns about them.
Okay. Susan, this is Bob. Just to reply to what you've been saying, we appreciate your rewrite, actually, and we think it does improve the readability and the flow of it. So, but it also did prompt us to do some additional changes, and I think the changes that we are looking at are actually improvements as well. So we think it's going to be a better product when we are ready to post it again, but it is going through some internal discussions at this point, so we weren't ready to post it yet. Related to the comment on approving the agreement between the interconnection customers that want to jointly build a SANU, that wasn't our intention. So
okay, great.
So at any rate, we didn't plan on actually approving it. We were just, our expectations was to require it to demonstrate that the customers that are going to be building this actually have agreed to do such and have agreed to the process that they're going to operate under, and then allow us to further discuss how we're going to move forward from that point.
Okay, that's very reasonable. That's why we didn't object to the concept. Again, it's hard to believe that people would agree to these things and not have an agreement, so that seems reasonable. And if all we have to do is submit it, that should be okay as well. So that should just be clear.
Okay. So we were looking, once we kind of complete our internal review and get legal to take a look at it again, we'll be posting that. I can't say exactly when it will happen, but I assume within about a week, if not sooner.
Okay, terrific, great. We'll look for it. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Are there any other questions?
We have no further questions at this time.
Now for the generator interconnection procedures BPM, we have one PRR. It's in the initial stage, and it's PRR 1187. Linda will also take us through this one.
Hi, this is also regarding the 2018 Interconnection Process Enhancement Initiative, and it includes just the changes in deliverability status and elections made after the Phase 2 studies. We did receive comments from San Diego Gas and Electric on the September 18th, and those could be mostly like cleanup items, and we appreciate their time in reviewing that and providing that. We will respond to that. Have not yet. The next step will be to post recommendations.
Okay. And it looks like another question just came through the queue, so we'll take that one now as well.
Okay. We did have one question. Caller, go ahead. Your line is unmuted.
Yeah. Hi, Susan Schneider, for Consulting. Just in case it wasn't obvious, the comments that were submitted on 1186 also would apply to 1187. I assume you would already know that, but just in case.
Thank you.
Now for the generator management BPM, we have two PRRs. Those are in the initial stage. It's PRR 1188 and 1189, and Nancy Strauss is here to take us through these.
Good morning. This is for PRR 1188, which is implementing the interconnection process enhancements and fund submittal requirement change. And the reason for revision was due to our implementing the interconnection process enhancements 2018 and also a fund submittal requirement change. Initially, we have received proposed edits from San Diego Gas and Electric on September 18th, and also joint comments and proposed edits from EDF Renewables, Large Scale Solar Association, and S-Power on September 18th. The initial comment period expired on September 18th, and at this time we are in the process of reviewing and preparing a response, and our next step will be to propose posting the recommendation. Okay, now let's move on to PRR 1189, which involved incorporating tariff changes from the Reliability Must-Run Capacity Procurement Mechanism Policy Initiative regarding the retirement scenarios and RMR designation. And the reason for revision was updating Section 12 of the BPM to incorporate the tariff changes from the RMR CPM Policy Initiative regarding retirement scenarios and RMR designation. During the initial comment period, we did not receive comments to date, and the initial comment period expired on September the 18th. So our next step in this PRR is to post the recommendation.
Okay, and we do have a question in the queue, so we'll take that question at this time.
Caller, go ahead. Your line is unmuted.
Hi, Susan Schneider, Phoenix Consulting on the joint comments. We weren't really criticizing the issue here. There's several places where these funds are applicable, MMA requests, repowering requests, limited operation studies, and the ISO's added a sentence that says that the interconnection customer must specify the purpose of the funds within 80 days of submittal to the ISO. And it seems a little odd that, for example, if a customer is going to be asking for a limited operations study and they give you the limited operations study deposit, it seems obvious that the deposit is for purposes of conducting the limited operations study. So why do they have to separately specify within 80 days the purpose of the funds? It seems a little strange.
Hi, Susan. This is Joanne. So what we've run into is that we receive deposits and then do not receive the actual request associated with the deposit until several months later. So that's the problem that we're trying to solve here. So accounting is putting into effect something where if we don't know what the deposit is for after that timeline, we're going to return it. If we have a request for it, obviously we're going to know that and be able to pursue it. It's just in cases where we receive the deposit but not the request within that frame.
Well, that seems odd, but okay. Maybe you could just clarify that in the language then. If you receive funds but not a request, then this is what would happen. But yeah, okay, that does make sense. So thank you for the explanation, but just maybe clarified in the language.
Okay. Thank you, Thanks. Susan. We will respond to that. Thank you.
Okay, and finally, the Reliability Requirements BPM. We have one PRR. It's in the initial stage, and this is 1195. And Kyle Woody is here to take us through this one.
Yes. Whoever is left on the line, reliability must run, capacity procurement. This is due to the policy initiatives as it relates to resource adequacy. There was no comment submitted. The initial comment period expired September 24th, and the next step is to post the recommendation.
Okay, are there any questions for Kyle on this one?
There are no questions at this time.
Okay, thanks, Kyle. All right. So that wraps up today's meeting. Thank you to everyone who stayed on the line. I know we went a little bit over. We had a lot to cover today. But the next meeting is October 22nd at 11 a.m. If you have any questions about the BPM process, you can email those to bpm_cm@kaiso.com or reach out to me directly via phone at 916-608-5829. Thanks again, everyone, for joining today, and have a great rest of your day.
That concludes our conference. Thank you for using AT&T Event Conferencing Enhanced. You may now disconnect.